Earlier this month, the Biden administration announced its goal of reaching 70% of Americans with a COVID shot in the arm by the 4th of July. And while the total number of vaccines continues to grow, Georgia's numbers reveal our pace is rapidly dropping. Georgia already lags behind the national vaccination by 30%, but in the past month, the number of new shots given each day is dropping dramatically. We're now averaging about 32,000 new shots every single day, and that is down 55%. Right now, the majority of eligible Georgians, about 62%, still have yet to even get a COVID-19 vaccine. That amounts to about 6.1 million people. Now, with the slowing vaccination rate, we're now several months behind reaching the 70% vaccination goal.